What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I have a really cool Legacy deck that I found on 6 prizes centered around Brutal Bash Zoroark. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and click that subscribe button. Helps us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, one of the cooler conspiracy theories around Pokemon that I've heard, and actually to preface this question, I love Pokemon conspiracy theories. Like, I love seeing things like, I mean, even from things such as that Gengar is Clefable's shadow to more complex ones that, I mean, honestly, I can't think of any conspiracy theories off the top of my head, which is driving me nuts because I love those type of videos. I love hearing about them. I love reading about them. And one cool thing that I saw that was a conspiracy theory revolving around Zoroark is that N is a Zoroark. Now, a few things to support this theory were, one, N never... Okay, so to be fair, like, he says that he never really captures to be fair, even though you see him throw out Pokeballs and his Pokemon come out of Pokeballs, he says that he doesn't capture Pokemon, he just enlists the ones that are around to help him. So N doesn't necessarily own any Pokemon, which would make sense if he were a Pokemon himself. Another thing is, when you are at the Elite Four, one of the ways that you encounter N is, well, you see a Zoroark, and then when you follow Zoroark down, you discover that it was actually N all along. Well, you discover that N is the only one there and Zoroark is nowhere to be seen. So, the theory is that N is a Zoroark. My question of the day is, what do you guys think of that theory? Do you think N is actually a Zoroark, or do you just think, oh, Sticks, you're full of it? I mean, N is obviously Ghetsis' son. I mean, there's all this proof, and that's just a conspiracy theory. Or are you one that's like, you know what? I think N could be Zoroark. I mean, if you guys want to just be like, Sticks, you're an idiot, feel free to say that. I mean, I love conspiracy theories, which is why I thought that one was so cool. I mean, let's be real, it's probably wrong, but there's a decent amount of evidence. I'm not going to say there's a lot, but there's a decent amount, enough to where it's at least kind of like, you know what? That could be possible. That's kind of cool to think about. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think of the conspiracy theory that N is a Zoroark? But anyway, on to the deck. Like I said, it is centered around Brutal Bash Zoroark, 100 HP, so, I mean, kind of bulky, but I mean, that's what you generally expect from Zoroark. And the Brutal Bash attack, 20 damage times 20 for the number of dark Pokemon you have in play. So as you can imagine, this deck is all about just getting a bunch of dark Pokemon into play, having a bench full of dark Pokemon, and then being able to consistently hit for a minimum of 120 damage. Now, in itself, 120 is not nearly enough, but there are certain things in this deck that we are using to boost that damage. I will get to those in a little bit, but I'm just going to start from the Pokemon and then go right down the line. So starting off, we are running 3 Absol, two different ones actually, but 2 of the Absol Prime and 1 of the Plasma Absol. Now the Plasma Absol is just kind of a, well, what's kind of funny is this Absol in a Zoroark deck in Legacy is basically reminiscent of the, well, I would say the modern Zoroark is reminiscent of this Absol, because Absol, Mind Jack, 20 plus 20 times plus 20 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Huh. Mind Jack, that sounds really familiar. That is definitely the attack that Breakthrough Zoroark has, except Breakthrough Zoroark's is quite a bit better. 10 base plus 30 for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So basically, the new Zoroark is an improved Absol, but this Absol is basically just another attacker, kind of to punish decks like Ray Eels, other decks that like to fill up the bench. And Mind Jack is just be like, okay, this way we don't have to use Brutal Bash, we can just punish our opponent for putting a bunch of Pokemon on the bench. It's a basic Pokemon that's a nice way of attacking. And then one of the ways that we are going to compensate for Zoroark and Absol only being able to cap out at 120 is Absol Prime. The Absol Prime, the more I use it, the more I'm discovering that this is a really, really, really cool Pokemon to use because of its Pokebody. Eye of Disaster. As long as Absol is your active Pokemon, whenever your opponent plays down, well, basically, if Absol is your active, whenever your opponent puts down a benched Pokemon, you're able to put 2 damage counters onto that Pokemon. So immediately, Zoroark and Absol only have to hit for 150, which you can already see is a pretty easy number to hit for damage, as long as your Absol is out there putting 2 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. Well, okay, it only has to hit for 150 against 170 EXs, but either way, 2 damage counters is very, very, very nice, and in this deck, that's easily attainable, especially because Dark Cloak Darkrai gives free retreat to your Dark Pokemon, so even if you don't start with Absol Prime, as long as you're able to get it out, throw a Darkness onto your active Pokemon, retreat it into Absol, and then let your opponent go. So it's a very cool combination that you're able to pull off quite frequently. Running 3 Darkrai because, I mean, Dark Cloak in itself is an insane ability. Gives you free retreat to all of your Pokemon with any Darkness energy attached. That's ridiculous. Night Spear, we're able to use that. I mean, this deck isn't dedicated to using Night Spear, but it is more than capable of doing that and has plenty of resources to be able to do that. So you know what? I was like, why not just throw 3 Darkrai in here? We want to load up the bench with Dark Pokemon, so we better have a lot of Dark Pokemon at our disposal. Why not put what is widely considered the best Dark Pokemon? Well, actually, I'm pretty sure it's almost unarguably the best Dark Pokemon in Legacy, and it's arguably the best Dark Pokemon to ever be in the game. I mean, arguably. I'm saying arguably, even though a lot of people would agree with me that Darkrai, in its heyday, was the best, well, based on Darkrai's success in its heyday, and the success it's still able to have now, it can be considered the best Dark Pokemon in the history of the game, and might even be considered the best Pokemon in the history of the game, but again, very arguably, and and I'm not trying to raise any controversy, I'm just saying that Darkrai's so good, running a lot of them does not hurt you. Another Pokemon that you might as well run is 2 Sableye because of Junk Hunt. Sableye is a Dark Pokemon, so play that down. It's a basic Pokemon, so you can immediately use it. And Junk Hunt's one of those attacks that you can use turn 2 when, if you're not like set up yet, you can just be like, okay, well, Sableye, just Junk Hunt, die, and then I have a better setup for next turn. So Sableye, along with Darkrai, a very, very, very powerful combo that makes this deck work quite a bit. And then as for the main attackers, for Zorua with the Ascension attack, there is another Zorua. There are a couple other Zorua you can use. I like this one just because you can use Ascension to immediately evolve. But again, in my opinion, try out other Zoruas that are maybe a little bit bulkier. Let me know. Actually, are there any Zoruas with 60 HP? Yeah, you can use this one. This one has Paralyzing Gaze, so it can buy you a turn. But I just like Ascension because you're able to evolve it. Search your deck for Zoroark and evolve it into Zorua. You can use that turn 1 type of thing, so you're able to get a Zoroark up immediately and just search your deck. So, I mean, just that's what I like, and that's what I went for. I'm using 2 different Zoroark. Obviously, the Brutal Bash one, running 3 of those because that's what this deck is centered around. And then 1 Foul Play Zoroark. This guy can lead to some very, very nasty plays. One thing I love about Foul Play Zoroark, because if your opponent has a Pokemon out that has a huge attack like Landorus or Genesect, and they knock one of your big Pokemon out and they look super menacing, you can just send Zoroark and be like, oh, hey, Land's Judgment, or actually, I'm not sure if Zoroark can use G-Booster. If a G-Booster's attack to a Genesect, can a Foul Play Zoroark copy that attack? I have the feeling it would, but I have not encountered that, so I have no idea. But again, let me know if you guys know in the description. And then also the same with Land's Judgment. Like, you can discard all fighting energy attached to Zoroark to do 150 damage, but if there's no fighting energy on Zoroark, are you still able to do that extra 70 damage by using that effect? Because, I mean, theoretically, you can just be like, yeah, I'll discard all fighting energy. There's no fighting energy to begin with. But just let me know that type of interaction with Foul Play. I'd actually be very curious. But either way, Foul Play sets up for some very cool shenanigans with different attacks. As for the items, 1 Computer Search. I mean, straight up, Computer Search is Computer Search. Get any card, get that 1 puzzle piece you're missing. And also the discard of Computer Search is remedied a little bit by Dark Patch, because you can Computer Search, throw Darkness into the discard pile, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden I've activated Dark Patch and gotten the puzzle piece that I need to be able to set up. So very cool combination. Dark Patch gives us extra attachments per turn, lets you set up things on the bench while you throw a DCE onto your active Zoroark. 3 Hypnotoxic Laser, and 2 Virbank. Only 2 Virbank, just because, I mean, again, we need a little bit extra damage because Zoroark and Absol both cap out at 120, Darkrai caps out at 90 and 30 onto the bench, so we need ways of doing extra damage. Hypnotoxic Laser and Virbank is one of those ways of getting extra damage on the board, along with Absol Prime, and then Silver Bangle rounds it out, but I'll get to that in a little bit. For Junk Arm, again, like Computer Search, if you discard Darkness Energy, you can get those back with Dark Patch, so the discard is not fully remedied, but a little bit. Same thing with Ultra Ball and the discard of that, but Ultra Ball gets us what we want when we want. Level Ball is there to search out Zorua and Absol Prime as well as Sableye. You can't get Darkrai, Zoroark, or Plasma Absol with Level Ball, but you can get Absol Prime, Sableye, and Zorua, so still worth throwing a couple of those in the deck. 2 Random Receiver to be able to get supporters, kind of pseudo VS Seekers, to be like, oh, okay, I have a Junk Arm, I'm just getting Random Receiver so I can get a supporter for next turn, or for this turn if you need it. 1 Super Rod, because our Zoroark are going to get knocked out. We need to keep them streaming, and we need to keep them going. So Super Rod lets you put those back into the deck to use later. 3 Ultra Ball, like I said, get what we want when we want. As for these supporters, just kind of a generic. 4 Oak, because I don't always like discarding. I mean, you run a couple evolutions in this deck, which you can't always play immediately, and you don't want to Juniper away, so Oak is the supporter that we use the most. Juniper still gives you a fresh hand of 7. You cannot argue with that. And then N is great for late game. Be like, okay, my opponent's a little too far ahead. Slow down. And it also lets you shuffle draw. So that's why I'm running that line of supporters. But again, my opinion, try a line of supporters out for yourselves and let me know what you think. 3 Silver Bangle, again, to hit for a little bit more damage against those EXs, be able to take the knockouts when we want to. Only 3 DCE, because while Zoroarks run on DCEs and they get powered up in one attachment with DCEs, Dark Patch helps out quite a bit, just being able to be like, okay, Dark Patch, yeah, I can't even say that very fast, but just being able to Dark Patch lets you set up quite a bit for basic energies and stuff like that, so that's why I only felt the need to run 3 Dark Patch. And also, Darkrai and Absol don't really benefit from DCEs at all, so while the main attacker does, the backup attackers that we use relatively frequently don't benefit from DCEs, so that's why I decided to only run 3 and then 7 Darkness, so that we can have those when we need them. So yeah, that is the deck. I'm done rambling. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Juan 10G with a Water, Grass, Psychic, and I don't even know. Could be a really interesting deck, I know. Actually, ooh, this could be an Empoleon Dusknoir deck. I know that that's a really, really cool deck that I'm starting to see more and more. Luckily, I do start with a pretty incredible opening hand. Wow. That could honestly not be more perfect because I'm able to start with an Absol Prime, and I have a couple of Zorua, I have a Sableye, I'll be able to get a Darkness in the discard, and then I still have a draw supporter, so that is a perfect opening hand. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to discard a Junk Arm in the process, but honestly, that's not too big of a deal. What I am going to do is just play the 2 Zorua down, actually get rid of the Sableye and the Darkness Energy, because I do see that my opponent is running an Eevee, meaning that Zoroark won't necessarily have to hit for 120 damage every single turn, meaning that I can kind of save the Pokemon that I want to. And I even, wow, this is just beautiful, because I get a DCE that I can play onto a Zorua. I have a Level Ball for next turn to grab another Zorua, whatever I want, and I'm able to Hypnotoxic Laser. Actually, you know what, screw it, I'm going to Level Ball right now, grab another Zorua, just so I can potentially evolve 3 Zoroark next turn. I have a Random Receiver, I have another supporter in my hand, so that was honestly probably the perfect first turn for this deck. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that, well, actually, the only possible way I think that hand could have been better is if the Random Receiver was a Virbank, but otherwise this was an ideal first turn. I got a Darkness in the discard pile, I have my Absol active, I have 3 Zorua down on the bench, I have the free retreating Darkrai, I have a DCE on one of my Zorua, and yeah, I mean, I even have a supporter for next turn after playing my hand down to practically 0, so that was just ideal in every single sense of the word. Now, I wish I would have had this against a more, I guess, a more top tier deck. I'm not going to say more competitive because I don't know exactly what my opponent is running, but from the looks of it, we see Eevee, we see Water Energy, we see a we see a Ralts. So, I mean, I'm not thinking that my opponent's deck is exactly top tier, but I'm not saying it's a bad deck. I'm just saying that it's not like Genesect, Virizion, or Reshflosion or something like that, where it's going to be like a super, super difficult match for us to be able to deal with. So my opponent does grab a Keldeo with the Ultra Ball. Hasn't played it down. I'm not sure why. I mean, yeah, Absol Prime will get a couple damage counters on it, but considering Eevee's poisoned, I feel like you'd want to get that thing out of the active spot at the very least. But, I mean, I don't know. My opponent maybe is even having trouble with internet connection at this point. Okay, so he does play the Keldeo down after quite a bit of time. Probably just get an energy evolution with his Eevee. I'm not sure necessarily what synergy the Ralts has with the deck. Maybe running like Gallade, and he fails the energy evolution. So I'm really not sure what exactly is going on right now. I'm going to go ahead and Random Receiver to throw that into the discard pile. That way a Junk Arm can turn into a Random Receiver, because I was not in danger of getting rid of any other supporters because I had the Oak, which throws it back into my deck. And unfortunately, I don't get a Zoroark. So that's unfortunate. But what I can do is, honestly, I'm just going to end the turn right there, because if my opponent is able to get more Pokemon down, I want to be able to keep getting 2 damage on them just with Absol's attack. And plus Scratch, while it would have potentially knocked out the Eevee coming back into my turn, if my opponent had evolved, I wouldn't have been able to keep the poison on it, and I would have potentially put a DCE in danger without getting a guaranteed knockout. So I decided to play it safe. My opponent plays down a Squirtle. So is this... Oh, you know what this could be? This could be like a Blastoise Keldeo with Powerful Storm. I'm just going to go for the laser, see if I can get sleep, because, I mean, worst case scenario, I leave the Eevee asleep, and I just wanted to make sure that I mean, there was no downside at all to playing the laser right there, because I was going to discard it anyway. Might as well have just gone for it to be able to put the Eevee to sleep. And then I draw into 3 Zoroark. That is perfect. I'm going to retreat into my non-bangled Zoroark, because I'm going to be able to take a knockout with this guy anyway. I want to save the bangled Zoroark in case my opponent is able to get a Keldeo powered up and be able to knock out one of my Zoroark. That way I have an immediate knockout in the back. And, I mean, yeah, I'm in a phenomenal position. My opponent promotes Ralts. That's not a big deal. I will just be able to Brutal Bash it again, be able to take the knockout on that. And honestly, it doesn't look like my opponent has much of anything at all. If he was able to get a Blastoise up, then that could be a little bit of a problem. And the 170 on Keldeo is one of the exact reasons that I'm using Absol Prime in this deck, just because Zoroark can pretty consistently hit for 150. It's that extra 20 damage that you need, and considering a vast majority of the good EXs in the Legacy format are 170 HP, well, except for like Landorus and Darkrai, but like things like Mewtwo, Virizion, Genesect, and what the heck just happened? Oh my gosh, TCGO kicked me out right when I was about to win. So, super frustrating, but I am just going to rage a little bit and then come back, see if I can get a decent match with this deck. So I went and checked my internet, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, so that was all on TCGO right there, way to go. But now we have a match against a pure fighting deck, which is going to just kind of be atrocious for us, because we run nothing but dark Pokemon and nothing but dark Pokemon with... Actually, no, I guess Sableye doesn't have a fighting weakness. So, okay, so we run just majority dark Pokemon with a fighting weakness, save a Sableye, which can't do any substantial damage apart from being able to recycle items, which, don't get me wrong, that is phenomenal. But Sableye really does... I mean, okay, I guess, never mind, I take that back. Sableye with Hypnotoxic Laser, and with coin flips, if I happen to get heads and my opponent stays asleep, Sableye can just win me the match single-handedly. But otherwise, okay. So, interesting start for me. I can computer search immediately for a laser. Okay, I get a Zorua, so that's pretty nice. I'm going to play that sucker down. Going to go ahead and computer search, get rid of the N and a darkness energy to grab... actually, yeah, I'm just going to grab the laser so I can get damage racking up on that throw. I'm not sure exactly what my opponent is running because, I mean, you never really see Throw and Roggenrola, so, I mean, could be a really cool deck that I'm just not familiar with, but I don't know. I am going to go ahead and... Do I want to go ahead and Level Ball? I think I'm going to go ahead and Level Ball. Grab an Absol Prime, and then play that down. Now, am I going to... So let's Dark Patch immediately onto the Absol. That way I have free retreat when I get a Darkrai out. And then I'm going to retreat Sableye manually into Absol. And my Darkness energy just turned into a Fire energy really quickly. That's so weird. All of my energy have been changing color recently in certain situations. But I'm bringing Absol Prime active. 1, so it can take the hits. And 2, because if my opponent plays down any more Pokemon, I want those 2 damage on it. Especially because we're going to be dealing with... It looks like we're going to be dealing with a lot of non-EXs. So Silver Bangle won't be doing much for me. And, okay, my opponent Circle Throw. I guess he needs another energy. And he plays a Silent. So, again, I'm pretty sure that we're not up against a super competitive deck. But, I mean, you go with what you got. And, oh, boy, that was the one card I didn't want to draw. Wow. So, I'm going to get rid of the Zoroark and the Junk Arm because I drew a DCE, which I do not want to get rid of. Let's grab a Darkrai to be able to play that sucker down. Play the DCE onto my Zorua. And then Oak's New Theory, see if we can get a couple more Darkness Pokemon, which we do. That is very, very nice. Let's Ultra Ball so I can get a Zoroark. Get rid of the Sableye and the Darkrai. Just, I mean, I hate to do that, but it's what I have to do in this situation to be able to get a Zoroark and to be able to get a knockout in this case, I believe. Let's just Level Ball. For my last Zorua, I have another DCE that I can put onto that later. Let's go ahead and retreat Absol. Got absolutely no use out... Absolutely. I'm so funny. It's awful. Get no use out of it, really. And then just knock out the throw with the Zoroark. And now my opponent still needs 2 energy to be able to attack. I get a Hypnotoxic Laser, so I'm in a good position. And my opponent just decides to concede. Can't blame him at all. I had a very good setup, and my opponent had no real way of dealing with it, especially because all of his attackers required 2 energy. So, yeah, again, a very quick second match. I apologize. You really... It's a toss-up of the quality of games you get in Legacy, so let's go ahead and try to find one more and hope that it's a pretty good one. Alrighty, we've found another one, and there we go. This is what I'm talking about. We are up against a most likely Virizion Genesect deck. I mean, I could be wrong, but this has all the hallmarks of a Virizion Genesect deck, because, I mean, you have the normal and grass and metal, all of which are pretty indicative of that. I do start off with a Sableye and a Darkrai and a Juniper. Juniper's not the supporter I'd like to have in this situation, and Laserbank is going to be pretty worthless in this matchup, so that's going to be pretty unfortunate, actually. And my opponent even starts first, which, I mean, that's just making a bad situation even worse, because he will be able to play down Pokemon down. I will not have any chance of getting an Absol out in order to get 2 damage counters on my opponent's Pokemon. So this is going to be an uphill battle. If I can manage to get 2 damage counters on all of my opponent's Pokemon, then I have a chance. And I'm going to be discarding 2 Zoroark. That is atrocious. That is truly awful. Because even the foul play Zoroark would actually be pretty solid in this matchup. Because I'd be able to copy G-Booster, Megalo Cannon, all of that stuff. But luckily, I do get the Super Rod. And I'm just going to retreat into my Absol Prime, because even though my opponent did manage to play the Celebi Prime down, I mean, that's not one of the things I'm worried about. I want to get 20 damage on the Genesects and the Virizions that my opponent plays down. So he does play a Plasma onto the Virizion, and then Juniper's away his hand. If that's a top deck, that was a ridiculous top deck. And he actually gets rid of his G-Booster, so that's pretty nice for me. What I can do with this coming turn, my opponent's just going to Emerald Slash. Put energy onto the Celebi. So that is, if we can manage to get a pretty solid setup, then we'll be in an amazing position. My opponent actually just decides not to, just puts the 50 damage onto the Absol. I play the Zorua down, and TCGO seems to be being awful again. Luckily, I do play it down, and I don't have to worry about anything else happening. Let's go ahead and Ultra Ball, grab a Brutal Bash Zoroark. That way I can begin hitting my opponent's Virizion, if I can get the right combination of cards, that is. So, Okay, I get some stuff. Not sure if it's good stuff, but I mean, it's solid stuff. So I am going to go ahead and level ball, get another Zorua, probably play that sucker down, and unfortunately, I don't get a supporter for next turn, so it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. I'm going to go ahead and put the Darkness Energy onto my Brutal Bash Zoroark, just because if my opponent manages to knock out the Absol, then... Actually, no, that wouldn't work. So he does get the free retreat with Sky Arrow. And, I mean, luckily my opponent hasn't gotten much of anything yet, and he has this Oak's New Theory, so, this is going to be bad. I'd be in a good position if I was able to Brutal Bash that turn, but unfortunately I was not. And while I do have a couple cool Zoroarks, okay, here we go. This is where it's going to start going downhill. Luckily, if he plays both of those Genesects down, I will be able to get 20 damage on each of them, setting them up for Bangled Brutal Bash knockouts. My opponent even has a Jirachi in hand. Does the damage... Okay. So he was able to get the energy, get the damage onto the Jirachi, get an Oak for next turn, knock out my Absol, and now my opponent is one prize ahead. Unfortunately, I don't even have a Random Receiver in the discard pile. So that puts me in a very, very poor position. I honestly need supporters in order to have a chance in this battle. If I don't, then there's really not much I can do at all. My opponent will be taking a prize after completely powering up a Genesect, and unfortunately, Genesect will be able to one-shot Zoroarks, so that's going to be pretty crucial as well. Oh man, I even don't get another energy. So I can't even Brutal Bash this turn. What I am going to do is level ball, and I have plenty of supporters in my deck. Like, there are supporters there. There really are. But what I am going to do is go ahead and... let's Confuse Ray, actually, just because I need to buy time. I mean, yeah, my opponent can just retreat into his Genesect, but I also needed 10 extra damage on the... 20 damage on the Virizion in order to be able to one-shot it with a Bangled Brutal Bash, but unfortunately we do not get that. My opponent is going to be able to get the G-Booster, so he will be able to bring out Darkrai if he's able to attach a Plasma Energy onto his Genesect. And honestly, like, this is so horrible. I mean, I would be in a good spot by now if I was able to Brutal Bash this turn. I mean, if I was able to Brutal Bash this turn, even, I would have been okay. But as it stands now, in a very, very, very bad spot. Because my opponent will be able to just Megalo Cannon up my Sableye, and that's going to put me in a very, very bad spot. But yeah, we do see him just take the knockout on Sableye. I am going to bring up my Zoroark. Hopefully I'll be able to attack this turn, and thank the Lord I draw a Darkness Energy. So that was a very nice top deck for me. Do I want to play the Absol Prime, or do I want to play the Darkrai down? So unfortunately, because I don't have any draw support of any kind, I have no way of getting a Silver Bangle, meaning I'm not going to be able to take a one-hit knockout on this Genesect, which would have been huge. So really, just the fact that I am dead drawing like crazy and not getting anything going at this point is probably... it's very bad. I mean, I can still come back, just because Zoroark is one prize attackers and my opponent is a bunch of two prizes. So if I take a knockout, he takes a knockout, I take a knockout, he takes a knockout, I take a knockout, then I would take all 6 prizes and he'd be down to 1. So I'm in an okay... actually, you know what? I'm not in an okay spot. I need to be able to draw something. I mean, just this is atrocious what I have in my hand. This is it's frustrating because, I mean, I had a chance to be able to take out a okay, never mind. My opponent is even going to pull ahead. It's going to go down to 2 prizes because I can't draw anything. So that is very, very frustrating. Crap. So, yeah, I mean, I still have my Zoroark. I'm going to be able to take 2 prizes off the Genesect, but my opponent is down to 2 prizes as well. And he's going to be able to just one-shot my Zoroarks completely. So I am just going to play the Absol down. I draw the Silver Bangle 1 turn too late. If I had it last turn, that would have been gigantic because I would have avoided the knockout on the on my Darkrai, and I still don't draw a supporter. Wow. So this is going downhill very, very quickly. If my opponent has a Junk Arm and a Plasma Energy and a Grass Energy, I just lose this game. So we do see the Forest Breath. He obviously has that. He's going to put it on the Genesect. If he has the Plasma Energy and a way of getting back his G-Booster, then we do lose the game. Luckily, he's gone through 2 of them, and I mean, they either run 3 or 4. If he runs 3, then he only has 1 left, which means the odds are kind of in my favor for him not having it. But either way, Zoroark will go down at the very least this turn. I will be able to take a retaliatory knockout on his Genesect with a Silver Bangled, a Silver Bangled Brutal Bash by my other Zoroark on the bench. But at that point, I will have played my hand out completely. And I mean, just if my opponent had started dead drawing as well, then I might have had a chance. But the fact that I'm dead drawing and my opponent, I mean, I still have half my deck to go through. My opponent only has 9 cards. So this is very, very bad. Luckily, I will be able to knock out his only other Genesect with energy on it. Like, that is the only solace I'm going to be able to take from this, and I still don't get a supporter. Wow, that is very bad. I mean, my opponent is down to 1 prize, but now we have a bangled up Zoroark that's able to Brutal Bash and take a knockout on a Genesect, and now I am 1 prize away from being I'm 1 EX knockout away from being able to win the game. So my opponent does play another Genesect down. He's able to Forest Breath, and I mean, he needs quite a bit to be able to win. He needs a manual attachment and an energy switch now, or a Colorless Machine. Okay, I think my opponent wins if he just has the manual attachment. He has the Tool Scrapper. That's just insult to injury right there. If he has the extra energy, we are going to lose. There's the Bicycle. Please don't have drawn it. Okay, so we lose. My opponent is able to get an energy retrieval, and that is ridiculously frustrating because I would have won that if I just hadn't dead drawn like absolute, like, that was so ridiculous that all those outs, and I still just couldn't draw into anything at all. So very, very frustrating that we went up against arguably the best deck in Legacy and just couldn't do... I mean, we were still even able to keep it close despite the horrible draws. So, I mean, that tells you how decent we actually had it in that matchup, and we could have won if I just hadn't dead drawn like crazy and had absolutely nothing going. So very frustrating, but that does happen. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.